Alright, in this tutorial we are going to do 3 things. Check the description below for the start of each part. First, we are going to import finished audio, trim off the unwanted parts from the beginning and end, and then export the audio with the volume leveled up as an MP3. Then we're going to import audio that sounds a bit stark and raw, trim off the unwanted bits at the beginning and end, add reverb, and export it with its volume leveled up as an MP3. Finally, we're going to import a separate instrument and voice track, mix them together, trim off the unwanted bits from the beginning and end, add reverb, and export the mix with its volume leveled up as an MP3. And we're going to do all of this in GarageBand. Here we go. Part 1. Alright, when you run GarageBand, this is the opening dialog that you get. You may have this details window folded up like this. You can click on it to see all of it, but none of this stuff matters. All that matters is that you are going to select Empty Project, it's New Project, Empty Project, and choose. That's it. As a generic empty project, it always instantiates one track. So if I delete that track, it's going to give me a dialog window that says, what kind of track do you want to create? So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is just drag my audio right out of the Finder window right in here. And the first thing we're doing is just dragging in finished audio and trimming the front and back bits off of it, and then exporting it with its audio leveled up as an MP3. So I'm going to switch to the Finder window. And I've got a trial files folder here with some audio in it ready to go for this tutorial. The first thing I'm going to do is take this recording of hymn 51. It's the raw recording. I'm just going to drag it right up here to the window. Just drop it anywhere. It doesn't matter where I drop it. GarageBand is converting it and adding it into the session now. It's going to take a minute or two to render all the waveforms. I'm just going to click and move it to the front just like that. Now I can click and then right click on this other track that was already there and select delete track, and it's just fine. Now it'll let me delete that without hassling me because I've got other audio. So that's cool. Now, before I go any further, I want to point out that I'm using an older version of GarageBand. I am using version 10.1.6. So I'm not sure what version you guys will be using, but make a note that if there's some differences, that's the reason why. But in general, all this stuff would be the same. All right, so this slider right here is the zoom left-right slider. And if I go all the way to the left, it shows me the whole thing. And if I go all the way to the right, it zooms around the cursor, which right now is at the beginning of the track. It's right here. And you can grab and move it, right? So I want to put it right about where the audio starts, and I want to zoom in on it like that. Woo. And then I've got a slider down here. I can slide over. I'm going to try and do this entire tutorial without using any hotkeys other than spacebar for start and stop. So I'm going to get the zooming right, slide over. Cool, that's pretty good right there. If I hit spacebar to play, you hear the organ starts right there. Let's try it again. And all this up front is dead space. So all I got to do is now drag my cursor to the front edge of this right here. You can see it automatically turns into a little trim icon, and trim that back to right about there. Now it's locking and snapping around right now. There's a reason for that. That's because snapping is turned on by default. So I'm going to go to Track, Edit. It's Edit. I'm going to go to Edit, Snap to Grid. You see it's turned on. The hotkey is Command-G, but regardless, I'm going to click here to turn it off. Now Snap to Grid is turned off. See? Off. Great. Now I can drag things around freely, and it won't hassle me with that snapping bit. So now I'm going to put the cursor right where I trimmed to, and I'm going to zoom in even more. Oh, and I can see like, oh yeah, I could get a little bit tighter. That's pretty cool, right? That's fine. Now when I put this cursor there and I hit play, that's the beginning of the track. Perfect. Let's zoom out. Let's move to the end of the track. Matter of fact, let's just show all. Move to the end of the track. Zoom in a little bit. Slide over. Listen to the end. So that's really fine. There's nothing to trim off there. The only thing that you're hearing trail as when we level this thing up, the only thing that we're hearing trail is the sound of the organ the organ blowers happening. And if, at a louder volume on a PA system, maybe like that, you might hear those, and then there'll be a hard cutoff. So we can add, at the very end, we might add a little fade out. But we won't do that till the end because it would be problematic if we... It could be problematic if we did it sooner than that. So that's good. Let's leave it. It is done. Let's do a show all. Now, I'm going to check preferences now. This is important. If you restart GarageBand every time you do this process, you need to double check these preferences. These are important. So I'm going to go GarageBand preferences. There's only two things that matter. Here's my preferences window. Not this, but under audio MIDI, of course, you want your output and input device to be system settings. That's not really that important. But you should know that needs to be that way. It's advanced. You want to have 24-bit unchecked, and you want to have auto normalize checked. And that says export projects at full loudness. When you export a project, auto normalize increases the loudness if needed so the project is not too quiet. This movie thumbnail resolution is irrelevant. So really that is the one important thing. But this is the entire thing. There is no leveling up feature in GarageBand. It simply is having this checkbox checked when you export or save something to disk. It will automatically normalize it. I'm going to show you at the end of this tutorial when I bring all the files that we've exported back in how they're all set to about the same level automatically because of this setting. So that is critical. That's it. All right, let's go back to the file. So now we've got the beginning tight, we've got the ending clean, and we've got that preferences set. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a little fade out on the end here just to show you how to do it. Putting my cursor at the end, zooming in a little bit around the cursor, right there. Give myself some headroom to play with right there. I'm going to click now this button right here. It's the automation button. It shows the automation lane, and you can see the automation for volume is right there. And that's what we want, volume. So now when I click on the track, this yellow line lights up. I want to put a dot at the end, and I want to put a dot slightly before the end. Clicking again. I want to leave the dot here, and if I click and hold, you can see it says volume 0 dB. That's correct. Now I want to click and grab this one and take it all the way to infinity off. Right at the end of the track. So now the volume is going to fade from 0 where it was to infinity off, nothing at the end, and it'll eliminate any sudden cutoffs of that blower noise, which would be the only thing in this track that might be a problem. So it's going to sound like this. And you can see the blower noise fades out. If I want to adjust this, I can simply drag this one so it's a longer fade, maybe right there. Perfect. All right, cool. Now, we're done. Let's export it. Let's show all. Let's get rid of the automation lane just to be sure and safe we don't screw anything up. Turn that back off. Now, we simply go to Share. There it is. Export song to disk. And because we only have one region, it's just going to export the region that's shown there. And that's it. Export song to disk. Now here, I have to go, it automatically brought me up to the trial files folder that I was in, but it might not do that. You might have to navigate to the place where you saved the original file. And the reason I tell you to do that is for the simplification of naming this file. You can see it defaultly named it to Untitled and the date and time. I don't want that. I want to start with the original name and add the word process to it. You can see the original name was Hymn 150 Organ and this other stuff. So I've navigated to the folder where that original file is, and I'm going to click on the name. Boom. It puts the name then in the Save As window there. And I just replaced that last part with hyphen processed. Great. Now I need to check down here. I want it to be an MP3, and I want it to be the highest quality possible MP3 that GarageBand can do, which happens to be 256K. So that's it. MP3 256, Hymn 51 organ processed right in the same folder where the original file was, or is. Export. It's doing its thing. Done. Now I'm going to verify that it's correct after it converts it to an MP3. Cool. Let's go to the Finder window, and you can see now the organ Hymn 51 organ processed is right there. I'll click on it, hit the space bar to preview. Starts right away. It's louder than it was. It sounds great. Let me preview the ending. And I can hear that blower motor fade out beautifully. That's exactly right. That file is done. Back to GarageBand. All right, part 2. Picking up with where we left off. We've got this file that we just exported in here, and we don't want it anymore. So we're going to click on it, hit the delete key, and it is gone. Now I'm going to go back to the Finder window. And I'm going to say, yeah, the next thing we're going to do here is take this single file here, which is called Hymn 72 organ and voice, and drag that in there. Cool. And I just drag it anywhere, drop it. Again, it takes a minute to render all the waveforms. And you can see even over here on the track, it changed the name of the track to what the name of that file was, and that's great. I'm going to go ahead and drag it to the beginning, just for convenience. It's rendering out. Now, something interesting about this track, a friend and colleague sent me this, but it's kind of messed up. It's actually got mono organ recorded on both the left and right sides, except for only on the right side, there is also a voice layered on top. So the right side has been turned way down so that the voice is mixed and blended well with the organ, which is loud. I can't like mono sum this because it doesn't sound right. It gets all phasey. It's the same mono organ on both sides, and frankly, it sounds better just left separately with the voice only coming out of the right channel and the organ coming out of loudly on the left channel and mildly with the voice on the right channel. Now I could balance the two things out by grabbing the pan knob here and panning to the right somewhat, and that would balance it out, but the problem is the voice then is too loud. So as I go to the right, the organ gets quieter and the voice gets louder. So I'm going to leave it in the center where the person that sent it to me wanted it. But it's dry and stark, and the organ is mono, and the voice is on one side. And I was like, what can I do to fix this without spending too much time? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some reverb. I'm going to add a nice, lush reverb just to mask the whole thing. All right, so to add effects to a track, we have the track selected. It's the only track we have. We're going to click this button up here called Smart Controls. So I'm going to turn that on. That brings up a window down here where a bunch of effects and stuff is. We now have to hit this button here. It's called the inspector to see stuff about those things. So we're going to click that, turns that on. Now at this point, by the way, this library is still open. I don't need that, so I'm going to turn that off. That's this button right here. It's to save workspace. So I've turned the library off, not using it. All right, cool. Now we're on the track. We've got the Smart Controls window open. Now I need to add a reverb. Down here it says plugins, and there's a drop-down arrow that is not dropped down. So I'm going to drop it down, scroll down, and you can see there's a compressor and an EQ in line. The little power icons for those things are off. They are, well, the EQ is on. I can turn it off, but the EQ, if you were to select it, there's nothing set, so you're not hearing anything. That's fine. Either way, I can leave that stuff. It's fine. I'm going to click in the next window down, particularly over these two little arrows right here, and I'm going to select Reverb, and I want you to use Platinum Verb. Platinum Verb, that's the one. Now, you've opened Platinum Verb. The power defaults to being on. It's the factory default settings. There are some settings I'm going to tell you to use that I found that are best for this application. The pre-delay should be set to 0. The reverb time should be set to about 3.7. That's what I like. You could adjust that to your tastes. The high cut at 6,000 hertz is great. The spread at 100% is great. The dry should definitely be at 100%. And the wet should be at about 37% to start. All right, that's the setting I like best. And because I like that, I'm going to save it so that I can recall it later. I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to simply call that CSO verb. CSO verb. And it puts it, GarageBand puts it where it wants it in the folder for the Platinum Verb. Done. Now it's called CSO Verb. That's going to come in handy later, you'll see. So let's check out the settings that I think are best and see what they sound like. We're going to play right from here. Well, that's pretty good. We've got reverb happening there that helps to make the track that was kind of stark and raw to be a little more like, yeah, okay, there's organ and voice in a stereo space. I actually think the reverb needs to be a little bit longer for this, so I'm going to go ahead and bump it up to like 4 seconds and make it 40% wet. I'm going to make it real kind of lush. Let's try that. Great, that's fine. Let's go. Let's hear it without it, just to make sure. And here it is with it. So it really helps a lot to kind of mask the flaws of the track and just make everything sound nice. So that's great. We're going to close that window. Now we still need to trim up the beginning and the ending. So let's just jump to the beginning, do what we already did in part 1, zoom in. Check it out. It's pretty close. We're not even going to have to worry about it too much. We'll just trim right to where we can see the audio starts. Checking it. Great. Zoom out. Go to the end. Zoom in. Check it. That's fine. Because it's like a digital organ that doesn't have any noise. It fades to 0 and it's great. So we're done with that. Reverb is on. We can bounce the track. Simply go to Share, Export Song to Disk. It brought me. This is a good example of what can happen. It brought me to the last folder I was at, that platinum verb folder. That is not where I want to be. I need to go back to the folder where the file, or where I want to save this. In my case, where the original files are. That's how I like to do things. So I'm going to go here, desktop. Right at the top here is trial files. Double click that. I'm in. Now the name of this one is Hymn 72, organ and voice. So there it is right there. I'll click that. So the name now is all exactly the same. And I simply go to the end of that, do a hyphen processed. Cool. It's an MP3, 256K, and it's going in the folder I want. I'm going to hit export. GarageBand's doing its thing. There's the bounce. There's the conversion to MP3. Let's jump to the Finder window and confirm that it's cool. Here it is. Spacebar to preview. Starts right away. It's beautiful. Let's hear the ending. Well, let's hear some middle stuff. Verb sounds great. Let's jump to the ending. Beautiful. That track is done. Cool. Back to GarageBand. Going to show all again. Back to the beginning. All right, let's delete this track and get ready for part 3. Delete. All right, part 3. In part 3, we are going to bring in a separate voice and instrument track, mix them together, and then add some reverb, trim off the beginning and ending unwanted parts, and bounce the entire thing as a finished track. So let's go ahead and go back to our Finder window. And I have I've got this track here with a piano and the singer separately. So I'm going to drag the piano in first because I want it to be up here. Done. While that's rendering, I'm going to go back to the Finder window. And I'm going to drag in the voice part, which is not that, it's this one. I'm going to put it there, and you can see GarageBand automatically creates a new track. All right, cool. Now, I'm not going to do any trimming. The first thing I got to do is line these things up, man. So that's going to be fun in and of itself. So I'm going to click here and find the beginning of the piano part. That's it. That's where the vocal should start. So now I'm going to go to the vocal, and you can see this thick and heavy part right here that kind of lines up to get you generally like in the ballpark. I'm going to zoom in now that I've got it close. And I can see this is probably the beginning of her words there, and this is the thing. So I'm going to line those two things up and see where I'm at. It matters not. Nope. It matters not. That's pretty good. I'm going to go with it. Close enough. You could spend time zooming in and getting that perfect all day long, but I think that's going to be great. So we're going to go with that. Now you can hear it's totally dry. So the first thing we want to do is mix this properly so that they sound good together, even just totally dry. So let's listen a little bit further in, like here. So the singer's a little loud. So I'm going to bring it down to where it sounds good. A little quiet. All right, that's pretty good. Let's see what happens here. That's pretty good. The volume right now is at 3.4. I'm gonna leave it at minus 3.5. Now I can see this gets really loud. This could definitely be a problem. But I don't really want this quieter stuff to be too quiet. So let's listen to that and see what happens. All right, so she gets really way too loud right there. But because of this ginormous dynamic change between this part and the rest of the entire song, I'm going to do something special here to help take care of this without using compression or any other thing like that. I'm going to use volume automation to fix that. So before I instantiate any automation, I want to make sure my main levels are set, because once I set up automation, I can't change these anymore. I have to do everything in the automation lane, and that's a hassle. So let me confirm that I'm happy with the beginning by clicking here. I'm going to take it down just another notch or two, right there. Splitting the difference. I know I'm being anal, but all right, done. Now I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm going to put the cursor here, use the zoom in tool to zoom in to a reasonable amount. Now, check it out. She starts here, and she builds and builds and builds and builds, and then she's huge, and then she gets quiet again. All right, so what can we do to make that kind of not get so loud while still maintaining all of the dynamics of what she did? We're going to just simply turn the volume down to compensate for it. That's it. So we're going to turn on the automation lane right here. We're going to click on the track. Now we've got the yellow bar. We know that we don't want it to be any quieter here, so we're going to put a dot there. We know we do want it to be quieter by this maximum point here. So we'll put a dot there. We do know we do want it to stay and still be that quiet here, so we're going to put a dot there. And we know we want it to be fully returned to where it was before at the end of the whole passage here. Now the question is, how far down do we turn the volume? Well, we're going to find out. So we know that the volume is at minus 3.7 now. If I were to click on one of these dots and hold it, it would tell me I'm at minus 3.7. So I'm going to take that whole section down. I'm going to go down 8 dB. 3.7 plus 8 is 11.7. So I'm going to take this all the way down to 11.7 roughly. Let's just go 12. That's fine. 12. There. That's it. Now I'm going to grab the other one to match. It needs to come down to that same rough point, 11.6. Great. So now we've gone down about 8 dB. Let's listen to the passage and see if it works for us.
The centuries break, the earthbound wake, God's glorified.
All right, it's pretty good actually, but it's a little bit quiet. So I'm just going to go back a dB plus or so, just to minus 10. Right there. Listen one more time.
The centuries break, the earthbound wake, God's glorified.
That's pretty good. You could argue that you might want it to be louder still because it's dynamic, but the advantage of having it turned down this much is that when GarageBand levels up the audio on export, that'll give it some headroom, and the entire track will be louder on average, which will really help, and it'll sound great in playback and performance. So I'm going to leave it there just for the sake of this example anyway, and say that that's done. Now we've got to trim the front and back of this. So let's get out of the automation lane by turning off the automation button there. Put the cursor here, zoom in on it, and we can just see roughly that the piano starts right there, so let's trim to that. That's close enough. And the voice doesn't start till way later, so let's just get it in, out of the way. It doesn't have to be exact. There. Let's check it. Sounds great. And we won't hear the voice entrance here. You'll hear that.
It matters not.
Perfect. Let's check the ending now. I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down to the ending here. So the voice ends. So we don't need any of this.
His likeness.
Interesting thing that just happened. Because I had set a volume automation, I'm glad this came up. Because I set some volume automation from the previous section part of this tutorial to end at this point here where there's a different song, when I deleted the track underneath it, that automation stayed. I need to get rid of that. That's simple. Just click above it here and draw a little box like that around those 2 points. It highlighted them, hit delete. They're gone. Now you can confirm that that whole line is at 0 by simply clicking and holding that or there, and you can see that's at 0. So now I've got my audio back, but like there was no piano at the end and I couldn't figure out why. That's why. So we've got everything correct now. The piano's on, the voice has got its dip, and we're going to turn that back off. I should have caught that sooner. Back to the ending here. We're going to zoom in. And the piano is long gone by there. So like 106, 107. So let's just trim this back to somewhere in that range like that. Checking. And it goes quiet on its own. That's the end. That's great. No need to add a fade, nothing. Now we have one more thing to do. We have to add our reverb. And we have to add our reverb to both the voice and the piano independently. So we're going to drop down here to our, remember this is still on, our Smart Controls window is still open. We're going to now select the voice track first. We're going to turn off those things. There you go. We're going to add here in under plugins, reverb, platinum verb, and you can see it came up with the factory default. But guess what? I saved my CSO verb. I'm just going to select CSO verb. Boom, there are my settings. Like I saved them just like I want. Now let's hear how the voice sounds with this verb on it. Let's hear it at this loud part. So that's pretty lush. I like it, but if you wanted less, you could either turn down the mix a little bit or you could shorten up the reverb time. One of those two things. The time would make it not reverb for as long. The making it less wet would simply make the reverb quieter. So those are some things that you could tweak on your own. But I like it. So now I'm going to add that to the I got to add it to the piano track too, separately. So now I'm going to click piano. When I do that, what do you know? The platinum verb is still there. And that's because I used this track on the previous section of this tutorial, and I instantiated it at that time. So it's still there. Let's open it up and see. But if it wasn't there, you would add it by clicking on the arrows there and then selecting platinum verb and then selecting your CSO verb saved settings. That's already done. I can even select it again, but it's correct. So there they are. So now I've got the same I've got the same settings here. I'll put this here on both the piano and the voice. Great. See that? Let's check it out. Let's listen to the whole thing. Let's listen from the beginning. piano sounds lush. The voice sounds lush.
Make the earthbound wake, God's glory
I think that volume dip is perfect. I think it sounds awesome. Let's switch to the automation lane to see that. It's still in place. Looks great. All right, cool. So now we're ready, man. We're just going to go. We're ready to export this. Remember, because of the preferences setting being set to auto normalize, everything's going to get leveled up, and we're going to show you that at the end. So let's go to Share, Export Song to Disk. We're in where I want to be, my trial files folder. This is the Caitlin hymn 513. So I'm just going to go solo, click that. That's what I want the title to be. I'm going to go here, put processed at the end. It's set to be MP3. It's the highest quality, 256K. I'm going to export it. It's going to export the file. Convert to MP3. Cool. Let's check it in the Finder. Always check it in the Finder to make sure everything went according to plan. It is right here. Processed. Spacebar to preview. Starts perfectly. Gorgeous. Let's listen to that loud part.
The centuries break, the earthbound
Perfect. Love it. Let's listen to the ending. Piano fades to dark. It's perfect. I love it. All right, cool. So here's the final thing I wanted to show you. I'm going to go back to GarageBand. I'm going to actually left-click on the track and delete the entire track. It's going to say, you sure you want to do that? Because it's got stuff in it. I'm like, yep. Right-click, delete the track. Are you sure you want to do that? Because it's got stuff in it. Yeah. Now, cool. Now it's going to say create a new track. I'm going to hit cancel. I can't hit cancel. I forgot about this problem. So it just created an audio track. Shut off the library. That's what GarageBand does. Just ignore that. I'm going to bring up the Finder window. Check this out. I'm going to grab all three process files. This is just for exhibition. This is just to show you what it does when you have that set to auto-normalize on export. So I'm going to hold Command and click that one, hold Command and click that one. I've got all three selected. I'm going to drag all three in at once right here, release, let all that process. Boom, 3 files. It's going to take a second. While we're waiting, I'm going to delete this silly track. There they are. It's going to take a second for it to render out the waveforms, but check it out. I think it helps it along when I click in the waveform thing here. I don't know for sure. But I have an old computer and it's working pretty hard, so there we go. Yeah, see when I click in it, it says, "Oh, I need to render that." So you can see already that the hymn, the solo rather, is louder than it was. But all of this is quiet, and this is the part we turned down. And this is it has been auto leveled up to be at maximum loudness. Those little spots right there. So it's a quiet solo, and then it has a loud part. That's how it should be. This organ track is loud in and of itself, and this track too, its left side is way louder than its right side, but the whole thing has been turned up so that on average they're all matched. So we can check that out. We can hit the solo button for this and listen to this organ track, say right here. Sounds great. Let's listen to the solo right here. Sounds awesome. Let's unsolo that. Let's solo that. This one and listen to this this hymn here. It sounds great too. It's at the same average volume. The reverb settings and the mix and volume levels are just great. That's it. I mean, everything is perfect. This just shows you how that all works and what the finished product actually looks like. So now what happens is you've got all this stuff done, and even before I brought all these files in here to show you what they look like, you were done, and you were going to quit out of GarageBand. So I want to show you that, and you might be like, why does this matter? It only matters because I wanted to show how you do not need to save this project. Matter of fact, there's no reason to save this project. That'll only confuse you in the future. This tutorial is showing you how to go from the raw opening of a blank session in GarageBand to processing this audio and being done with it. So there's no reason to save the project. You just want to start new every time anyway. So of course you could do that if you wanted to, but you'd have to just know why you're doing that. All saving the project does is save the setup and stuff, which we messed around with so much in different ways that none of that matters. So that's it. You're going to go GarageBand, quit GarageBand, and it's going to say, do you want to save the document titled? Like the document is this whole like setup with these tracks and this stuff. And of course, no, you don't want that. You're just using it to process your audio and export it as a finished MP3 file. So don't save. That's it. GarageBand quits and you are done. All right, there you go. Be sure and like, subscribe, comment, and if you ring that bell button, you'll get notified whenever I lay up a new video. See ya!